Hey everybody, it's checking out my history. So we're now on poem 14 out of 15. And in today's session, because there is some I dialect in this poem, I'm going to be reading this in a different accent to my normal voice. And this is in no way implied racism, just saying this is a disclaimer. I would like to be able to do justice to this fantastic poem and the message that this great man, John Agard, is putting forward. And I'm simply reading it in a way that needs to be heard because it will help you to be able to make sense and unravel some of the key elements of the poem. Okay, so let's have a little listen and see what this is all about. Them tell me what them want to tell me. Bandage up me eye with me own history. Blind me to me own identity. Them tell me 'bout 1066 and all that. Them tell me 'bout Dick Whittington and he cat. But Toussaint Louverture, no, them never tell me 'bout that. Toussaint, a slave with vision, lick back Napoleon battalion and first black Republican born. Toussaint, the thorn to the French. Toussaint, the beacon of the Haitian Revolution. Then tell me about the man who discovered the balloon and the cow who jumped over the moon. Them tell me about the dish ran away with the spoon, but them never tell me about Nanny the Maroon. Nanny, seafar woman of mountain dream, fire woman struggle hopeful stream to freedom river. Them tell me about Lord Nelson and Waterloo, but them never tell me about Shaka the Great Zulu. Them tell me about Columbus and 1492, but what happened to the Caribs and the Arawaks too? Them tell me about Florence Nightingale and she lamp, and how Robin Hood used to camp. Them tell me about old King Cole was a merry old soul, but them never tell me about Mary Seacole. From Jamaica she travelled far. She volunteered to go, and even when the British said no, she still braved the Russian snow. A healing star among the wounded, a yellow sunrise to the dying. Them tell me what them want to tell me. But now I checking out me own history. I carving out me identity. What a corking poem. As soon as you've come off of this, I want all of you to find John Agard reading this himself, because that man is a ball of energy and he manages to convey the message of this poem in his reading of it so incredibly clearly. I could not do that justice, and so I would definitely listen to him reading that in his beautiful Guyanan tones. He's got the most wonderful voice to listen to. What we need to consider in this poem is it raises a great deal of issues, and power and conflict come through so obviously, but on so many sub-levels as well. And what we've got here is this sense that we've got to look at the way we teach history. And I'm a real fan of Black History Month, for example, and I do like to see how so much of history has eliminated a great deal of the hugely influential Black figures that have run parallel alongside all of those figures that you're taught in your current curricular studies of the subject. And so really, you've got to think about the importance of history. Now, history tells us where we've been. Of course, it tells us about human nature over time, but also that formulates who we are in the present and how we behave in the future. And so to know where we're going, we have to first learn where we've been. Now, if you're part of a culture and you are not white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, I'm not, okay? And so when you consider that, you've got to think to yourself, you know, am I actually limited in terms of the figures from history that I know about? I don't know about those people that make me me. And that's kind of what Agard is talking about here. He's had to follow a history curriculum that's biased towards this white Anglo-Saxon Protestant ideology, and especially British white people, because he was from a colonial part of the Caribbean. And we've got to think about that. He learned all about these mythical features and nursery rhyme characters when you've got brilliant people like Toussaint Louverture, who I learned about when I was studying for my degree in English and history. He was absolutely amazing, okay? You've got to know about the people who underpin your culture. And so really, old King Cole, although he might have been a merry old soul, has no relevance to John Agard's life whatsoever. So in this poem, we see him really challenging this view of history. And what he does is he brings in the names of these major Black historical figures to try and just, reset the balance here and create a basis for his own identity. So we do need to consider this. We need to think about how we teach elements of history in education, and how we as educators, certainly myself, we do need to really think about the diet that we're giving you. And of course, we're very limited in terms of what we can teach you. We're controlled at various different levels with the diet that we can feed you. But we do have to provoke you to check out your own history. Because remember what I said a moment ago, to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. You have to make sure that you are repeating the good things and trying to make sure that you don't repeat the things that aren't so positive. So let's really consider that. Now, I mentioned I dialect, and I'm going to go through the poem as quickly as I can. There's so many things to say about it because it's just so brilliant, and I get very excited when I'm teaching it. And we've got to look at this repetition in the first two lines of the poem. Dem tell me, dem tell me. Right, look at that. Dem, accusatory. Of course, it's the Caribbean dialect. It's them. Them, educators, people like me. We are the ones telling you. And the idea of that imperative, tell, it's this sense that I speak, you listen. Loads of you have been in my class, certainly know I do like that environment, but it's only because I value your learning and I want you to be able to buy in. I want you guys to be able to get your knowledge, because knowledge gives you power and also it gives you choice. And so that's why that happens. And then we have got this, what them want to tell me. So this is showing when we've got this them and then we've got the me, we've got this kind of division. We've got a them and us mentality. That in itself shows conflict. So it's the dominant view of education versus these innocent little children that we're polluting with ideas that perhaps aren't necessarily relevant to their life. So there is perhaps this disrespectful relationship between the learner and the teacher. Okay, so do really think about it. Into line 4 now, we're thinking of bandage up me eye. I love this line, right? Bandaging. So think about how a bandage is there. And a bandage is used to heal things, but also to conceal things. And in this case, if it's over your eye, you can't see things. And so really, we've got this sense, haven't we? It's blinding him perhaps from the truth of his past. And so it's sort of like just putting a plaster over something. It's not really reconciling him with his roots, and that's something that we all need to be able to do. So that's quite a good thing to talk about, okay? It's a really, really nice metaphor that we've got going there. Now we go into line 6, and I think when Agard is reading this, this is the first evidence that we have that he starts to sing in this mocking, dismissive tone. I don't think I sang that bit in my reading because I couldn't get my head around how to do it. And what we've got here is he uses this sort of nursery rhyme style voice to mock these moments in British history, or indeed nursery rhymes. And what this shows is this sense of pointlessness that he feels to the types of history that he has been taught. Like Dick Whittington, for example, I just want to like then slap my thigh and think of this pantomime figure, because that's what he is. Dick Whittington and his cat, he really is not as relevant as this incredible person from the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint Louverture, a French revolution. Well, we're not French, but French Haitian. The name is obviously French because of that colonial past there too. You have to think about this huge figure that was challenging oppression, that was breaking free from the slave trade and leading people to try and obtain their freedom. And so that's surely got to be more worthwhile to learn about that. And what we've got is this negativity that builds after the representation of Toussaint's name. We've got in line 9, no, them never tell me about that. Look at the negative lexis there, this building strength of negativity that he feels towards his learning of childhood. You'll notice then that we go into what I call a typographic shift. Now that's for set 1 and 2 if you want it. However, what the rest of you can say if you like is you can just say the font changes. It goes into italics. And what we actually see is the meaning list is in your standard font that we've got there. And then when he starts to talk about figures from his own culture there, we see that they're set apart with the italics there. They are given this reverence. The layout also becomes different. They're just in 2 or 3 word lines. And it's like he's savouring every single morsel of information about them. He wants the audience to hear and remember everything about Toussaint. It's reinforcing how important this figure is to him and his self-knowledge. So I really love that, okay? That real focus on him. Notice as well, when he describes Toussaint in line 20, he talks about him as a beacon. Now, this is a figure of light. And remember, this is perhaps illuminating something in Agard's past. This is filling in a gap for him about the knowledge of people who will matter. We then go on to have more mockery of British tradition in this next line, from line 22 onwards. We start to go a bit crazy. We've got the cow jumping over the moon and the dish running away with the spoon. And we've also got this mocking tone achieved by the rhyme here. We have got every single line rhymes. Balloon, moon, spoon, maroon. Okay. And so that mocking is achieved by that very childish rhyming pattern there. But in line 25, he mentions the fantastic figure again, Nanny de Maroon. All right. Notice that before Nanny is mentioned, the British figures are becoming increasingly more stupid and irrelevant to him. So Nanny, with the descriptions of her, we've got some really beautiful imagery that's used. And when you consider it, as describing her as a seafar woman, we've got this beautiful metaphor that she visualizes better things. She's a woman of mountain dream. A mountain could be symbolic of strength or barriers to overcome, and she does it. I like the idea of her being described as a fire woman, another metaphor, of course, showing that she's a woman full of passion, love, warmth, anger, all of those things. This somebody who overcame adversity through her very will as an individual. And then we've got all of these beautiful images that come through. They continue. She's described as a hopeful stream, you know, washing away despair, all of that stuff. Oh, it's gorgeous. I want to know more about Nanny de Maroon. You know, it's fabulous. She's got to be more interesting than Dick Whittington. Right, and then we go on again to more ridiculing of Lord Nelson and Waterloo. But he starts now to bring in more figures, and he compares them to Shaka, and then he compares Columbus to the tribal figures of Caribs and Arawaks too. So as the poem progresses, he's starting to become more knowledgeable. The figures from his own history are starting to override those figures from the historical background that he's been taught. He does then mention Florence Nightingale, but he juxtaposes her with Mary Seacole. Something that some of you know about me and something that some of you don't is that I studied to be a nurse before I saw the light. Thanks, Florence, for putting your lamp in my direction. And when I was training to be a nurse, we learnt, of course, all about Nightingale. And it was only when I then went on to study English and history at university that I learned about Mary Seacole. And for me, Seacole is actually the founder of the modern nurse. She was a woman, an ordinary woman, and she was a black woman who was not um, shielded in a hospital. She was actually delivering battlefield medicine. She was a fierce and brave and pioneering woman. It was so difficult for her to do what she did, but she was brave beyond measure. And I'm not undermining what Florence Nightingale achieved, but this woman deserves to have the equality of accolades that Nightingale does. I would really recommend learning a little bit more about that. So it shows that there is an element of racism in history, that there is white history that dominates and black history whose voices really do need to be heard. Those voices from history need to be equal as well. And so the descriptions of Mary Seacole are fantastic. Think of all of the relevance here. We've got lovely things, healing star, beautiful metaphor there, symbolic of light and guidance and fate perhaps. And then yellow sunrise, oh, isn't that nice? A new start perhaps to nursing. Yellow maybe could reflect sickness. Perhaps yellow sunrise could mean that she gave hope to those that were dying. There's so many different ways of reading that. And I'm going to really race through to the final stanza here. Them tell me what them want to tell me. Right, so now he becomes a bit dismissive. The rage there is kind of gone, because what we see in the next two lines is him actually taking control. Because look at the pronouns. He says, now I am checking out my own history. He's taken control of that. He's got ownership of his own history and identity. And in the last line, he says, I am carving out my identity. The verb carving there. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? Now, carving is like an artistic form. He's trying to carve something beautiful. He's making his history. He's shaping it into a vision that he can see that will represent the person that he is and the person where he comes from. Also, carving suggests permanence and something that isn't going to get taken away. It's meaningful, it's deliberate. And so I think it's a beautiful way to end the poem. So it ends very positively. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that I do want to tell you in addition to that, but I think the poem largely does speak for itself. The language is so beautiful. The focus has to be on symbolism here. Really, really do think about it. Focus on the syntax where it's broken. It's deliberately non-standard. Agard is a highly educated man. He can write however he wishes to because he knows how to control it. So you can see what he's trying to achieve through that broken syntax. Right, I love this poem. Hope you've enjoyed it too. And in our next session, it will be the last one. Remember, this is not an alternative to your anthologies. This is not an alternative to the essays that you've written in your own research. This is just for some of you while you're hopefully tidying your room, so that'll please your mum. You know, just to have this on in the background and just do a little bit of revision. This is 20 minutes where you don't even have to get a book out yourself. Okay, so this is just one of your strategies for revision for you. I do hope it helps you, and you take care. Don't forget to contact me if you've got any inquiries. See ya. Bye bye.